Okay, so now that we have discussed why we need to support our claims with and follow up our evidence with reasoning, and the most common standard reasoning pattern, which is causal reasoning, we also now need to address some of the most common usages of reasoning that are actually errors in logic, and these are known as fallacies. Now, in many of your classes, you may have gone over fallacies. They may have different names, or you may know additional fallacies, but these are the fallacies that are most commonly found in presentational speaking. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all of these with you today and show you some examples along the way of seeing these fallacies playing out in real campaigns in many cases. So again, what is a fallacy? It's a flaw in argument or an error in reasoning which doesn't follow the rule of logic. The thing about fallacies is that when you first hear them, they actually sound really good. They sound logical. They sound like they're supporting the argument. But if you give it a moment of thought or you really engage with it quite critically, they actually prove to be errors in logic. So, or in many cases, they're just not strong enough to support the claim. So the first fallacy that we have is an ad hominem. This is an attack against the character of the person making the argument. So for example, medical marijuana shouldn't be illegal. The only people for medical marijuana are burnouts listening to their Pink Floyd albums all day in their mother's basements. So in this case, the argument is around whether medical marijuana should be illegal or not legal, and the person is choosing to attack the character of the type of person who would argue that marijuana should be legalized. So it's not actually supporting the argument at all. It's just diverting from the argument and attacking the type of person that they think would approve of making medical marijuana legal. On the right side of the screen, you can see an ad that Dove released, "Doesn't your skin deserve better care?" So the icon or like the picture on the left is in barbed wire, and many consumers might recognize that soap as associated with another popular brand. And so in this case, Dove isn't necessarily saying that they are superior or how they're superior. They're just saying that they're worse. So you should definitely use our product. So it's an ad hominem attack. The next one is bandwagon or appeal to popular opinion, and this means that you should do something simply because it's correct, good, or true, just because many other people are doing it. So this is kind of, if you've ever heard a parent or maybe someone, a teacher in your life say, like, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? This is that idea that you would say, well, yes, I would. If my friends are doing it, then I'm going to do it too. So doesn't always, and especially in that example of like, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you do that too? It's kind of pointing at a logical part of this argument. So example, lots of people think that we should legalize marijuana, so it must be the correct thing to do. That on its own is not a powerful enough argument to support why we should make something legal or illegal, because we've known that throughout history, popular opinion has supported things, laws, policies that have not been great. So that's not an argument that is going to, it's not enough evidence to support why we should do something or shouldn't do something. You can see this reflected in this ad from Oral-B that was released in Australia. So Australia, you've made the switch. Over 1 million Australians have already tried Oral-B toothpaste. This is using that bandwagon or that popular opinion approach to sell this product. Everyone is trying it, you should too. The next one is slippery slope, which means that the speaker is saying that if we allow one thing to happen, then inevitably something else will happen, which will inevitably cause something else. So it's just this downward steep slope towards disaster that doesn't have any possibilities of steering off course. It's just going to be a complete negative spiral. For example, if I go out with you Thursday night, I won't be able to study for my test Friday, then I will fail the test, then I will fail the class, then I will lose my scholarship, then I will have to drop out, then I will not get the career I want, and I'll be 30 years old still living with my parents, unmarried, unhappy, and no children or career. That's just why I can't go out with you. So obviously there is a lot of flawed logic in this argument. Another one that I happened to find when I was perusing around social media one day is this library sign. So please do not eat in the library. The ants will get in, they will learn how to read, then they will get too smart. Knowledge is power, power corrupts, so the ants will turn evil and take over the world. This is obviously a humorous take on reinforcing a very important policy of not eating in the library in this case, but it is using a slippery slope in order to share this argument or support this argument. Okay, next we have a false dichotomy. It asserts a complicated question has only two answers when more actually exist. So for example, in order to balance the budget, we either have to cut social programs like education or we live with a huge deficit. In this case, in this particular argument, there are more options than just cutting back social programs or living with a huge deficit, but it's presented as an either-or situation. Same thing here with this MasterCard campaign. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. So that's just asserting that there's two options when you're trying to buy something. It's either money or it's MasterCard. A red herring is introducing irrelevant information into an argument. It usually sounds like it's relevant to the argument, but when you take a moment to think about it, it actually is irrelevant. For example, Rod Blagojevich didn't break any laws as governor. Just look at how great his hair is. That his hair has absolutely nothing to do with his, if he broke any laws as governor. An argument from tradition argues that the best policy is that a policy is best simply because it's always been done that way. It's okay for seniors to skip the last Monday of classes because Principal Belding knows that everyone's always done that at Bayside High. And so, again, it's just saying that since things have always been done that way, that must be the best way to do it. This hits back at that phrase of like, if a clock ain't broke, don't fix it type of mentality, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know why I inserted the clock in there, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, which in some cases works, but in many cases it doesn't. So that would be argument from tradition. I actually did have another campaign here. It didn't make it onto the slideshow, but it was a Coca-Cola ad that was basically sharing with the audience how they've always done their product this way and their product has always been great. So that's why you should keep consuming a Coca-Cola beverage. It's hitting on this argument from a tradition. Next, we have post hoc, meaning this is a false causal relationship. So after this happens, then this happens. You're going to see here my example that I used in the previous video. On an airplane, before there is turbulence, the flashing seatbelt light goes off. Thus, flashing seatbelt light causes turbulence. We know that this is a false causal connection, and so you do want to be careful with that, with asserting causal connections, especially if there's other things that may be interrupting that potential link. So here we have a false causal connection. Smell is power. It's the idea that if you use Old Spice, then you will become powerful, but we also know that that's just a false causal connection, that using Old Spice is not going to actually make you more powerful. A hasty generalization is a conclusion based on insufficient evidence. So just meaning like you just have not strong enough evidence to actually support your claim. For example, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college, invented Facebook, and made billions. Bill Gates dropped out of college, started Microsoft, and made billions. So dropping out of college must lead to great financial success, and a college degree is then unnecessary to achieve great financial success. So the thing here is that while Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates are incredibly notable for being, tech college dropouts and having achieved immense professional success, they are two of millions of people in the United States. So when you think about using just these two examples or these two people, individuals, and citing that therefore you must not need a college degree to be successful in life, the sample size is incredibly small. So we cannot use those that example to support this very large claim. Sensodyne does the same thing here in their ad. It says 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Sensodyne toothpaste. It sounds good on the face of it, but we're missing some key information. 9 out of 10 that you polled, and that's it? Or is it actually 9 out of every 10? Or what does the 10th person actually have to say? And so there's just a lot of information that is lacking in terms of this argument that's being put forth. And so in that way, it does act as a hasty generalization. All right. So we'll go ahead and stop here with this particular slide. All I'm trying to reassert is that when we are evaluating our arguments, we want to make sure that we are looking for the accuracy of the argument, which is thinking about the truth of the evidence, the credibility, and all of the things that we've spoken about supporting materials, and if they are credible, accurate, and actually supporting what they're supposed to be supporting. And then finally, the validity or the logic of the conclusion. So once we've determined that the evidence itself is credible evidence that is related to the argument, then we want to make sure that it is put forth in a way that actually links your claim through reasoning or supports your claim through reasoning. So it's a valid way of arriving to that conclusion.